Good day everyone. Today, I will represent my video presentation of 5 listed cases of Crim Law Book 2. So, first is People of the Philippines versus Holgado 2014. So, what is the fact of this case? Holgado and Misares were charged with illegal sales of dangerous drugs under Section 5 of RA 9165 after a police operation in Pasig City. Police reportedly first planned a buy-bust operation before enforcing a search warrant based on reports of drugs activity. So what is the operational details? PO1 Philip Aure acted as a posture buyer and gave Holgado market bills. So Holgado called Misares, who allegedly handed a plastic sachet containing white crystalline substance or tinatawag din natin shabu to the posture buyer. So after a signal was given, police attempt to apprehend them. Both fled into a house and escaped via an adjoining structure but were eventually cuffed. So what is the charge files? So Section 5, sales of dangerous drugs based on the white crystalline substance was sold. So Section 11, possession of dangerous drugs based on the other drugs allegedly seized during the search. So Section 12, possession of paraphernalia based on items found during enforcement of the search warrant. So what is the trial court decision? RTC convicted Holgado and Misares for illegal sales of drug, Section 5, and sentenced them to life imprisonment plus a fines. So they were acquitted for Section 11 and Section 12 charges due to lack of evidence and discrepancies in inventory. So what is the issue here? Whether the prosecutor or prosecution established guilt beyond reasonable doubt for the illegal sales of dangerous drugs, including compliance with the chain of custody requirements under Section 21 of RA 9165. So what is the Supreme Court ruling, or what is the decision? So the Supreme Court acquitted Holgado and Misares of the illegal sales of charge because the prosecution failed to prove compliance with the chain of custody rules, which the initial in drugs cases to ensure the integrity of evidence. So why this is important? Under RA 9165, the prosecution must show an unbroken and documented chain of custody of seized dangerous drugs from seizure to presentation in court. So the court emphasized that strict compliance with Section 21 or chain of custody is required because the exact identity, quantity, and integrity of the seized drugs must be provided beyond reasonable doubt. So, People of the Philippines versus Holgado 2014 is Holgado and Misares were originally convicted for illegal sales of drugs based on a police operation. So, on appeal, the Supreme Court found serious lapses in the chain of custody requires under RA 9165. Because of the lapses and evidence linked the accused to the drug was not proven beyond reasonable doubt. So the Supreme Court accused them for all charges related to illegal drug sales. So next is People of the Philippines versus Abarca. So People of the Philippines versus Francisco Abarca, citation or GR number 74433, September 14, 1987, Supreme Court of the Philippines. So what is the fact or what is happening there? So marriage and affair. Francisco Abarca was married to Jenny Abarca while he was in Manila reviewing for the bar exam. Jenny began an illicit relationship with Kingsley Polco in Tacloban. So what is the discovery of affair? On July 15, 1984, Abarca returned home and found Ko and his wife in the act of sexual intercourse. So Ko even armed himself with a revolver, but Abarca managed to escape. Retrieving a gun, Abarca went to find a firearm and came back with an M16 rifle. He then went to a nearby mahjong house where Ko usually hung out. So Abarca shoot and killed Ko. In the process, Arnold and Lina Amparado, two bystanders, were also hit and injured. So the trial court decision is the regional trial court convicted Abarca of the complex crime of murder with double frustrated murder and sentenced him to death. So what is the issue here? Whether Abarca's act of killing Ko and injuring others should be classified as a murder and frustrated murder for the injuries, or if an Article 247 of the Revised Penal Code applied. So what is the ruling or the ruling of the Supreme Court? So number 1 is Article 247 applied, not murder. The court held that Article 247 of the Revised Penal Code applies because Abarca surprised his wife and her paramour in the act of sexual intercourse, which triggered a passionate outburst directly leading to cause death. So Article 247 provides that the illegal married person who kills or injures his spouse or the spouse's partners in the very act of illicit intercourse is not guilty of homicide, murder. Instead, the situation is treated as death inflicted under exceptional circumstances, which does not constitute a crime but grants a special privilege. So Abarca was not liable for murder for killing Ko. So second, liability for injuries to bystanders. So the court found that Abarca did not intend to kill or seriously harm the Amparados. He was not committing a crime where he fired under the special circumstances of Article 247. However, because he failed to exercise due care, he was negligent in ensuring that other would not be hurt. So the result is Abarca was held liable for less serious physical injuries through simple negligence, not frustrated murder. So in People versus Abarca, Francisco Abarca discovered his wife in the act of sexual intercourse with another man, left briefly to get a rifle, and later killed that man and accidentally wounded two bystanders. The Supreme Court held that Article 247 of Revised Penal Code applied, meaning to killing was death inflicted under exceptional circumstances, not murder, and Abarca was only liable for simple negligence for injuring the bystanders. So, People of the Philippines versus Singcol or Leopoldo Singcol, GR number 275139, May 7, 2025. So, what is the fact? On February 4, 1986, Leopoldo Singcol stabbed and killed his father, Andres Singcol, during an argument at home. The father had a bolo or knife and allegedly tried to attack him. So immediately after Singcol encountered his sister-in-law, Egmedia, carrying her 2-year-old son. He stabbed her fatally and wounded the child, who survived. Singcol fled and remained a fugitive for about 36 years until his arrest in 2022. At trial, he claimed self-defense for his father's kill, that he acted under emotional disturbance due to long-term parental abuse. So what is the ruling of the Supreme Court? He accused a parricide or father's killing. So self-defense was rejected because the father's unlawful aggression had ceased on the threat was neutralized. Further violence is not justified. However, the court recognized the mitigating circumstances of passion and obfuscation, intent, emotional disturbance due to long-term abuse. This reproduced the penalty for parricide. So, murder for his killing sister-in-law. So, the court affirmed conviction for murder, agreeing with the lower court that the attack was treacherous, sudden, and deliberate, leaving the victim no chance to defend herself. In People vs. Singcol, Leopoldo Singcol killed his father and sister-in-law during a family confrontation in 1986. The Supreme Court upheld his conviction for parricide and murder but rejected his claim of self-defense in the killing of the father because the danger had already ceased. The court applied passion and obfuscation as a mitigating circumstances for the parricide due to a history of parental abuse, thereby reducing the penalty. The murder conviction for killing his sister-in-law was affirmed due to treachery. So next is People vs. Sumawan, GR number 187495-2014. So, marital rape under anti-rape law, RA 8353. So, what is the fact? So, Edgar Humawan is the accused and his wife is the victim, or identified by initial KKK to protect privacy. So, they were married since 1975 and had 4 children. On December 3, 1998, Mrs. Sumawan filed a complainant affidavit alleging that her husband raped her and their home in Cagayan de Oro City. So she claimed he forced her into sexual intercourse without her consent. So the trial court convicted Humawan of 2 counts of rapes and sentenced him to reclusion perpetua for each count. So, Humawan appealed challenging the validity of the marital rape change, largely arguing that the marital rape should not be treated the same as non-marital rape or implying implied consent within marriage. He also raised alibi and other defenses. So the issue is, can a husband be convicted of rape for sexual intercourse with his wife without her consent? Does the law recognize marital rape under RA 8353, where the elements of rape, including lack of consent, proven beyond reasonable doubt? So the ruling is yes. Marital rape is a crime under the anti-rape law or RA 8353. The spouses have equal protection under the law. The Supreme Court has RA 8353 abolished the old doctrine of irrevocable implied consent within marriage. Before RA 8353, Philippine courts often treated intercourse between spouses and consensual by default. RA 8353 change this consent is still required even if spouses are married. So marital rape incorporated in the single definition of rape in RA 8353. There is no separate, more restrictively rules for rape between spouses versus non-spouses. The court rejected the argument that marriage implies automatically consent to sexual intercourse and made it clear that a married woman has the same right to bodily autonomy as an unmarried woman. A husband cannot force sexual act on his wife without her consent. So the court upheld the conviction and affirmation the reclusion perpetua sentence life imprisonment for the two counts of rape. It also found the victim's testimony credible and evidence sufficient to sustain conviction. The husband's defense include alibi where inadequate. So, People versus Sumawan holds that anti-rape law legalized the prosecution of marital rape. A husband can be criminally liable for rape against his wife when he forced sex or sexual without consent. The old nation that a husband and wife have implied perpetua consent inside marriage is no longer valid. So the Supreme Court affirmed the conviction and penalty for reclusion perpetua upon finding that the elements of rape were proven beyond reasonable doubt. People versus sequel. So what is the fact of people versus sequel? The fact is a private individual detained another person for over 3 days within legal authority. So what is the ruling? The convicted of serious illegal detention under Article 267 of the Revised Penal Code or tinatawag nating RPC. So what is their distinction? The chronology duration over 3 days transforms a slight detention into serious offense, triggering enhanced penalties. So what is the legal basis? So their legal basis is the private person lack authority to detain. Unlawful deprivation of liberty is criminal regardless of act status. So what is the principle? The serious illegal detention applies when first is the detention is unlawful, and second, if the actor is private person. Number 3, if the duration exceeds over 3 days. So overall, People versus Sequel is case established the private individual unlawfully detaining another person for over 3 days commit serious illegal detention under Article 267 of the Revised Penal Code. This is ruling reinforces that detention during exceeding 3 days automatically elevates the offense to a serious crime, regardless of the actor's status. So, private person lack legal authority to detain, making unlawful deprivation of liberty a criminal act. So, that is the People versus Sequel. And that's are my 5 cases of Crim Law Book 2. Thank you.